All right, hello and welcome everyone. This is Gump, and I know a number of you are interested in the new changes coming up to DPS and the way they're trying to affect our use of SMGs and DPS in the game. And so I'm going to let you listen to a 1-minute clip of the devs talking about this, and then I'm going to come back and give you my thoughts.
Are using SMGs because they think they're more powerful, but also because they're easier to acquire, right?
Yeah. Well, when the game came out, the Vector was the ruler everywhere because it was the easiest crafting weapon that you could have. Then we switched to the Hog because it was now the newest crafting weapons. And as long as we are still in that crafting to get the best stuff, we will always be limited by the amount of weapon that the player have, because most of them will just use the weapon that they can craft. That is what we want to change for 1.2. And now that we will get the weapon from loot, you will have the chance to experience much more different weapons, much different kind of SMGs, assault rifle, marksman rifle, LMGs and shotgun that you did not have the chance to
and on that, armor cap is being increased. 75% now. I think that's really cool because a lot of people have been tailored towards these DPS builds. So armor is going to be even more important because you can get even more out of it. 75% is a lot. That's cool.
That's a lot, and that's part of a design decision that, especially with the latest update, we gave players a lot of different ways to really increase their damage via the gear sets or the weapons. But we didn't really give them the opportunity to increase their survivability. So every players are having more damage, but because they already reached the armor cap, they cannot really increase their survivability. So the time to kill is getting, especially in the dark zone in PvP.
All right, so this is pretty much the question that needs to be answered here, and I think that my answer to it is different from theirs drastically. And so the real question that everyone should be asking themselves is this, when we talk about in regards to meta of the game, because that's what this entire conversation in this video was about, changing the meta of the game, moving people away from focusing in on DPS, moving people away from focusing in on SMGs, moving people away from using the M1A1. And so let's just focus on the SMG part of that and ask one simple question. Why do we use SMGs? It's a very straightforward thing because that is the answer to changing the meta of the game. Their answer to that question was just given to you. We use SMGs because they can be crafted easily. The reason we all use the Vector at the beginning of the game because it was the easiest gun to craft. The reason we now use the AUG is because it's the new craftable gun. These are the reasons they believe that people use the SMG. Now, the other devs did mention in there that there is the potential that the SMG might be overpowered, that people think that they're overpowered. So, it's not really a question of is the SMG overpowered. Maybe that's the answer to the question of why we use SMGs. So, why do we use SMGs? And that is exactly what I'm getting ready to get into. And then, I want you to take this statement into consideration as we go forward. People have been tailored towards these DPS builds. Increasing the armor mitigation is a good step in getting them off of the DPS and lowering the DPS in the game. That's essentially what that second half of the conversation was about. Us having higher damage mitigation is going to lower people's DPS. Okay, this is the first time in this game that I've ever heard a dev say anything that made me really do believe that they don't understand their game, period. And we're going to get into it and go into the shooting range, and we're going to get into the DPS spreadsheet, and we're going to look at my old DPS build and some of the things I said about it, and we're going to answer the question of why do we use SMGs? Because I know why we use SMGs. I know why I use SMGs. I know because the math tells me to use an SMG. Alright, so let's talk about the SMG. Is the reason that we use the SMG because we can craft it easily? That is not true at all. We know that from the very beginning of the game. At the very beginning of the game, maybe not as much now, but at the very beginning of the game, we had access to all the blueprints pretty much that existed in the game, and it wasn't that hard to get them, to be honest. And I had access to assault rifles and marksman rifles and different types of SMGs, whether it be an MP5 or a Vector, or guns that dropped out in the open world. And so I had access to all these things. I had the opportunity to, one, craft 100 vectors and also craft 100 AK-47s. So why did I choose to craft 100 vectors? It's because vectors are the best DPS in the game. And so what's causing them to be the best DPS in the game is the question. Is it the crit chance on them? Because I know a lot of people out there say that. I'm going to show you in this video with the stats I've got on my stuff here that actually the assault rifle outperforms the SMG in a lot of situations. And that crit chance is not enough to overtake that gun as the best DPS gun in the game. It's not the reason that SMGs are the best DPS in the game. So what are the differences between an assault rifle? We're just going to focus on those two things. What are the differences between an assault rifle and SMG? Well, the crit chance thing I just explained. There's some RPM difference. The RPMs are usually higher on an SMG than an assault rifle, and the actual overall damage is usually higher on the assault rifle than the SMG. The assault rifle is normally more accurate. And then there's the one big thing that people just don't consider, and in my opinion, it is the answer to everything that they need to work on with gun balancing and how to change the meta of this entire game. And it is gun range. It is the one difference that exists between every single gun in the game. It is the effective range of your gun and how much damage your gun does. Now, this is something that I have been taking into account for a long time. Every one of my DPS builds has taken this into account, and I've never done a video on it. But now it's obviously a big issue because now they're starting to talk about changing the game and they're not using any words like range. If you go back and listen to my Sentry review build or Sentry review set review, I talk about the Sentry set in that, and I explain that if they wanted to have changed Sentry and made it where it only worked for sniper rifles, they should have included range in it. If you go back and listen to my very first DPS grind build for the Dark Zone when we were all level 0 for DZ, I built that build to kill NPCs as fast as possible, to increase your Dark Zone level as fast as possible, and everything about that build is about controlling the range. And if you go back and listen to my PvE 1 million DPS Sentry build, Sentry Striker combo build, listen to what I say in it. The same exact thing. We are trying to get in the face of the target and close the range and use an SMG and have the best DPS in the game as far as shooting something goes. Not counting sticky bombs or anything else like that. The best DPS in this game exists when the SMG is inside of its proper range, shooting things in the head and stacking crit chance and headshot damage. That's why every single person that runs DPS builds goes that route. But the one thing that no one ever thinks about is the range part of it. Everyone focuses on stacking crit chance and crit damage and headshot damage and all the stuff that we are used to stacking. Some people are starting to include fire rate as a part of that for PvP, for instance. These types of things. But the one thing that nobody ever comments on or talks about is range, and it's the most important piece to the puzzle. So let's go in here and look at this SMG and assault rifle comparison, and you're going to see it stand out dramatically. And then I'm going to go back to what the guy said in the video, and we're going to talk about how off they are about their thinking about how their game works. This is the SMG for target 1 inside of the shooting range. This is the weapon damage. The base weapon damage, so let me state this. The effective range of the SMG that I bought was 15 meters. The effective range of the assault rifle that I bought was 26 meters. I bought 2 guns from the vendor, green guns with no talents on them. Both from the vendor, both the exact same level. It's about as close as you can get to a comparison to hold everything constant and not include talents and all the other things that are going into that. So, I took that into the range and I tested it and I figured out the DPS for each one of the targets and started focusing in on the range so you could see what the DPS was of an SMG and an assault rifle. Literally the same gun. The same level gun at these ranges. The base weapon damage for that SMG with the first target was 7,133. All of the other statistics are going to stay the same. If we go down, we'll see that the actual damage, the DPS number, is 83,712. For the assault rifle, the damage is a little lower, the RPMs are lower, the same kind of stuff you expect. Reload speed is a little slower than the SMG at 2.3. We go over and look, 75,000 DPS. It's exactly what we expected, a lower DPS. Now, people may say that's only 8,000 difference, but the bigger we grow our numbers and stuff, the bigger that difference becomes. It's going to become a larger percentage when you actually have a normal build put together. These are two green guns. Ignore the fact that it's only 83 and 75. The fact is that we're doing almost 10% more DPS with an SMG than an assault rifle. Now, I want to point out something here. With these spreadsheets, we can put a 1 in for accuracy, and what that means is we're hitting 100% headshots, which is exactly what you can do on target 1 inside the shooting range, okay? Now, I want to emphasize that because we're going to start seeing some differences as we go. Notice that the name of this one is Assault Rifle Targets 1 and 2. That's because once you go to the second target, this is the same DPS that you're pulling at the range of the second target. I don't know what that range is. It is beyond 15 meters. All right? That number is 75,000 once again on the second target. We go over and look at the SMG, and it drops to 72,000. The SMG was once 83,000, and on target 2, it drops to 72,000. And at that range, already, we are beyond with the assault rifle than this SMG. The range of the gun is so important in this game, and no one really talks about it. And this is why I always build my character builds to be tanky, my DPS builds to have max armor mitigation, and to be tanky. And what do I always say to you guys when I do these builds, these DPS builds? I want to get right in the face of these targets, put my gun to their forehead, and pull every bullet right in their head. Why? Because there's a huge difference in DPS when we start factoring in headshots. And I don't even have a full character. The more headshot damage you have, the more crits you have, the more your DPS is going to vary per headshot of how much your accuracy is towards headshots. So we can look, that's at 83,000. What if we actually only hit 50% of our headshots, which we are going to be able to hit 100% at the target 1. But if we just remove that, it's a 20,000 damage difference between 50% headshots and 100% headshots. And that's only for this is a very low crit chance, very low headshot damage build because I don't have any talons and things on. All right, so I'm going to emphasize that because that's going to factor into target 2. The further we get away from our target, the more difficult it is for us to also hit SMG headshots. The assault rifle is more accurate. It's actually easier to hit headshots as we get further away from the target, and we do more damage on headshots. Now, the SMG is still critting more often, and so it's making up some of it. So now we can go in here and we can say for target 2, maybe we only hit 80% of our headshots, but for the target 2, for the assault rifle. But on the SMG, maybe we actually only hit 70% of our headshots. And we start seeing the difference between SMGs even move further and further away because of now the accuracy bonus is starting to kick in for the assault rifle. So now we're sitting at about 67,000. We dropped it a little lower. And this is sitting at 61,000 down from an original 80-something, 83,000. All right? Now, we move on to target 3 and we look at the SMG. And the SMG drops all the way to 53,000, and that's 100% headshot accuracy. We know it's not possible to get 100% headshot accuracy on the third target with an SMG. Your number literally is probably actually around 30% at that range with an SMG. It's a very difficult shot to hit. 35,000 DPS. We look at the assault rifle. It's not too hard to actually hit there, so we're going to actually give it maybe 50%. 20% more headshots, like extra 2 out of 10 shots. And we look at the assault rifle damage here. And at range, 53,000 here, 35,000 here. So in the course of going from a 5-meter target to a target that is beyond 26 meters, the SMG has went from a 10,000 damage increase at close range, 100% headshots up close. It's went from a 10,000 damage, about a 10,000 extra DPS at that range. Almost a 10%. I'm sorry, 10% was the number we used. 10% extra DPS at close range, where we could hit all headshots, to almost a 40% lower than the assault rifle beyond 26 meters. That's a huge difference, guys. It's an enormous difference. There is no doubt that the assault rifle is by far the best DPS in the game once you get beyond the range of an SMG. And so now I'm going to bring you back to what I've been saying in the PvP damage mitigation build video that I did. And that is this. And I'm going to replay exactly what those guys said in the video. When you increase armor mitigation and damage mitigation in a game, you are allowing players to get closer and closer together. Which is why when you go into PvP, people don't try to get cover. To give you an extreme opposite example, Arma. If you go into a military simulator, no one runs across the middle of a field from point A to point B to get to a player. Why? Because that player will shoot them and kill them instantly. So if a player has an SMG and a player has an assault rifle, this player has to work very hard to get into a range with his gun where he has an advantage. And the assault rifle person, the closer the assault rifle person gets to the SMG user, the bigger his disadvantage becomes. And that's exactly what we see in this game, which tells me that these guns are actually quite balanced in reality. So, what happens in the Division? It's the exact opposite. There is so much damage mitigation in this game already that exists that players don't try to work very hard to get into situations with the SMG so that their damage is maximized. Because we have already seen that damage is absolutely 100% maximized for the SMG when they are within 5 meters of the target. Which is why I build my DPS builds with tanky ability to get within 5 meters of the target. So I can increase my headshot damage percentage. My headshot percentage. And in a game like Arma, where there is no damage mitigation and it's just 1 or 2 bullets and you're dead, everyone likes to use assault rifles and they only use close quarter combat guns in close quarters. That's another problem. Let me just throw that out there. They're talking about changing all these things to meta and getting people off of SMGs. You are not going to get people off of SMGs unless you lower, number one, the damage mitigation that people are allowed to have in the game. Because what's happening is SMG users are so fucking tanky, they don't care about some assault rifle dude shooting them from a distance while they're moving. And it's so easy to close in this gap and put the assault rifle user in a disadvantaged situation to where their DPS is way lower than ours and our fire rate and everything is higher and we're using everything just... It's the wheelhouse for SMGs. And then I give you the comment that they do at the end. We're going to increase armor mitigation because to help people get away from DPS builds? You're making my DPS build better. You're forcing people more towards SMG use because the tankier people are and the more health they have and the more armor mitigation they have, the closer they are going to be in each other's face. Go play any MMO in the world. Have you ever seen 2 tanks fighting each other from 1,000,000 miles away? No, it's the non-tanky DPS dudes with staves that have long-range abilities because they can't handle damage that are doing that. In this game, you are capable of having massive amounts of damage and being tanky. And by being tanky, you are increasing your DPS in this game. So when they tell me they're going to give me 75% armor mitigation and they're trying to get me off of my SMG DPS build, you're doing the exact opposite. You're increasing my dependency to use SMGs because I can get to my opponent or I can get to the NPCs and stand in their face and put my gun to their forehead and have 100% accuracy, which stacks on top of everything that my entire character is built around for doing DPS, which is hitting headshots and getting critical headshot hits. If I wasn't capable of getting close to my target, I would have to work to get close to him, and it would be more difficult for me to win a gunfight between me and someone using an assault rifle. And in PvE, it would be more difficult for me to get actually in the face of NPCs and stick my gun to their head. So I actually might consider using this type of DPS with the assault rifle at a distance, in cover, actually playing the game like normal shooter games are made. I'm not saying they should make it like Arma. It's not Arma. But I'm using Arma as an example of the exact opposite of this situation. Because no one uses SMGs in Arma. Everyone uses assault rifles and marksman rifles. It's why we do it. We don't use these guns because we can craft them. We use them because we have brains enough to figure out what the best DPS is in the game. And that's why everybody is 5 feet away from each other in PvE and PvP. 5 feet away from each other in PvP, standing this close to each other, pointing their guns into each other's heads. When I hear them say that armor mitigation increases are going to decrease DPS, I almost fell out of my chair. It's a fact, guys. That's how it works. It's right here are the numbers. I don't know what else to say to these people. It's the first time that I really feel like that the game that these guys aren't capable of fixing the game. They don't understand it. They don't get it. They don't even understand the way PvP works. Like why people are doing what they're doing. This is what everyone's doing. This is why everyone runs SMGs. It's the best DPS in the game because you can become tanky enough to maximize that DPS in the range that you need to be in. They could have fixed Sentry Set with range. They can get people off of SMGs with changes to range, with changes to not allowing people to get within range and sit there with that much armor mitigation and health, allowing them to maximize their DPS. Which is exactly what they're getting ready to allow us to do even more. There you go, guys. Take with it what you will. If you believe me, if you don't believe me, I don't know. I just give you numbers showing you DPS numbers from ranges. And you explain to me why we're all using SMGs. It's the best DPS in the game. It's the highest DPS out of all these situations. And the only reason that we can put ourselves in that situation is because of the mitigation. I've been saying this the whole time the game's been out. All right, take it easy. Let me know what you think. Let's come.
And on that, armor cap is being increased. 75% now. I think that's really cool because a lot of people have been tailored towards these DPS builds. So armor is going to be even more important because you can get even more out of it. 75% is a lot. That's cool.
That's a lot, and that's part of a design decision that, especially with the latest update, we gave player a lot of different ways to really increase their damage via the gear sets or the weapons. But we didn't really give them the opportunity to increase their survivability. So every players are having more damage, but they because they already reached the armor cap, they cannot really increase their survivability.